So we're gonna do something completely different. Rather than talk at you, give you actually a seminar presentation, we decided to go completely blind into this, where we're gonna show things on the screen that we haven't previously rehearsed, and you're gonna get the live feedback of what our thoughts are on things.
But to start off, though, before we jump into that craziness, I just want to set the stage a little bit about what Reach is for people that don't already know. So last, we just heard Jason talking about some of the amazing technology that Algorand is producing for you to write your smart contracts. And I hope that one of the things that you felt from that is that there's a lot of amazing features that are available, but it can be a little bit challenging to know the right time to use every single one of them. Like the last question, for instance, about whether or not, how do I know if my contract is doing the right thing? I mean, that's one of the major questions about all programming. Did I write the right program? And one of the main things that Reach is trying to do is we want to make it so that anybody can write a blockchain program, no matter what their skill level is. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to make a programming language that is a very high-level way of describing what you want your program to do. Just as an example, the program that Jason just showed in PyTeal, we wrote a version of that program in Reach, and it's about 60 lines of code. So Reach is a JavaScript-based programming language where when you write your program, you feel like you're writing in JavaScript, writing normal JavaScript code. But we take that program and we compile it into the backend languages of the different chains that we support. Because we support multiple chains. The one that we like the most, don't tell anybody, is Algorand. So we spend a lot of time thinking about and optimizing Reach for Algorand. But then not only do we produce the program for you, we also make it so that that program is automatically verified during the compilation process by a theorem prover. So we make sure that if you, for instance, in your program, say something like, I don't know, we're going to transfer $5 to Chris. I don't know why you'd ever do that, but if you were, then we would verify that it is always the case that you can only reach that part in the program when you really do actually have $5. That's an example of a way of how contract verification ensures that your program does the right thing. But it's not only the compiler, wait, there's more, which is that also it's a deployment tool and a way for you to build clients that will interact with your program. And when you write your program in Reach, we generate something that basically contains all of the details for how to work with your program, how to work with your contract. So for instance, when Jason was showing, he showed the contract code, and he also showed some client code. Both of those things are generated by Reach for you. So the goal of Reach is to make it so that all of the complexity of blockchain is removed for you, so you can focus on just the business logic of the thing that you care about. And we expect that Reach will be appropriate for, on the order of 80 to 90% of all programs. There's always going to be programs. They're going to do some really low-level meticulous thing where you need to be exposed to all of the details about what Algorand can do. But right now, there's not really anything that we don't expose. There's a few things like logic signatures, for instance, which are a really cool feature of Algorand that we don't use. And so that would be an example right now of something that would be in what we think of that last 10%. Now, I do want to tell you a little bit about some of the things that are going to come into the future for Reach that you can look forward to.
I want to talk a little bit more about, so Jay talked about what Reach is. One of the things I do want to actually talk about is who's using Reach, or where we are actually in the process. So I haven't actually ran the numbers since last week, but we have had over 3,500 developers that have built an application using Reach. That being said, what you should all be happy about, the large majority of those are building for Algorand. And the question you might ask is, okay, well, what kind of applications are they building? What is it really coming? And the good news is it's more than just tutorials or anything like that, so that is counting. But there's entire companies building on top of Reach, and we'll talk about that in a little bit as well.
Yeah. So let me tell you a little bit about some of the future roadmap of the stuff that we're going to be bringing in the next little bit. So one of the things that happens to you as you start becoming a programmer, and our audience is really intro programmers, is that you're not really sure exactly what your program is supposed to do or what it actually does. And so you need to run your program over and over again, right? And so one of the things that we're building is a simulator for Reach that allows you to simulate what your program is doing, or rather what your program could do. And in particular, it's a tool that's meant to expose the unexpected behaviors that you might not realize are latent in your program. So just to give you a tiny example, maybe you didn't realize that in your program, it's possible for Chris to go first. And if Chris does go first, then something different happens than what you thought, because in your test, you only ever ran it with Jay going first. Now, for a situation like that, Reach actually is already verifying your program to make sure nothing goes bad. But the only thing that we guarantee is that you don't do something illegal, like, I don't know, like jaywalk or try to send people money that you don't actually have. But we don't verify that, well, we can verify that you ultimately do the thing that you want. And so that's the tool of the simulator. Now, the next thing is that one of the issues that comes up a lot in Reach programs is that there's sort of two modes of writing a Reach program, rather of using a Reach program. There's being a participant in the program, which basically means being fully synchronized to the unique blockchain that's being assembled for your application. Because that's the way that I really think about what dApps do, is they establish a blockchain that lives on top of another blockchain, the one, for instance, the Algorand one that you're deploying with most typically. And so most users, most clients of a Reach program are fully synchronized, and that's one mode. And another mode is that you exist outside of the synchronization and you just inject in a value. But what we want to do is we want to allow the possibility of being fully synchronized and then going offline for a while and then coming back online and resuming where you were before. Right now, that is not supported. So you might think of this as corresponding to the fast sync up feature that Algorand already has. We're trying to take that concept and expose it at the application level. That's the session resumption feature. And then finally, right now in Reach, when you write those programs that use it in the inject a value in from outside style, this feels like the way that you program when you use some other blockchains that, that have like published API specifications. That's really what this feature maps onto in those chains. But we don't have something like that right now on Algorand. Just recently, the Algorand community has approved the ARC for the ABI, which is the application binary interface, which basically is a way of saying, if I wanted to call the transfer function and give it two numbers, I better include the first number in this argument, the second number in that argument. And how do I say that I want it to use the transfer function? Well, there's a certain rule for identifying what the method is. Up until this point, we haven't ever had that on Algorand. And it hasn't been relevant because we haven't been in the process of building contracts that have many, many different front ends associated with them. And now that Algorand is providing us with the ability to have contracts call other contracts, this is going to be far more relevant because we're going to have those kinds of interactions happening on chain. So what we'll be doing in the next little bit in Reach is making sure that Reach actually obeys the Algorand ABI specification that we just supported, and that we'll expose that to everybody so that it'll be possible for contracts not written in Reach to call Reach programs on chain.
Can I translate that a little bit?
No, not allowed to translate. I speak perfectly good English.
I'm going to do that anyway. So the reason why I'm actually excited for this quite a bit is NFTs. Smart NFTs, functional NFTs that actually do things other than just designate ownership. And with this addition that the Algorand has given it to us, we can now have universally used, which, in multiple different front ends, NFTs that can do things like royalties, that can evolve, project evolve, intent, really cool project that we're working on, or do pretty much anything that your mind can come up with, is rules around both ownership and transaction built into the NFT itself. So you no longer have to rely on a client side or a server to enforce those rules. And as soon as this comes out, we are going to be making a big marketing push to the entire world that Algorand is the best place to build smart NFTs in a cheap, fast, and easy way. So this is going to start in Q1 as soon as Jay actually doesn't work and implements the API. So
now, the next thing we'll talk about, yeah, I guess you're allowed to talk.
Okay. So the next thing here is, I talked about earlier, I was like, who is building on Algorand with Reach? And this is more, I really want to kind of point out, this is not just a bunch of people hacking away and building, hello world. So we're gonna go through. I'm gonna hit each one of these. Jay, you're free. I'm not gonna hog it like you just did. So if you want to add anything to it, you can. But the first one I want to talk about is Polynomials. This is a great team out of Australia that is really innovating on the proposal generation of a DAO. One of the things that you'll see a lot of times is that the DAO is set up, but then it waits around for people to come up with good ideas to vote on to actually give it. What they're working on is a way to gamify the innovation part of the actual proposal process, and they're using Reach to actually build out their entire system. Another great side effect, what they're doing, not yet, is that while they're building this, they're open sourcing all of their tools to make it easier for other developers to prototype and build their own applications. So I'm really happy for this team. Speaking of, Headline is another team. They're actually here. You see them walking around. There's one right there. Is that they're building a lot of different things, but one of the things that we really truly care about is they're building a scaffolding for Reach. So one of the things I see that's lacking in this space is you guys have great, brilliant ideas. You just want to actually get it up and going and testing it out. So they're building out the scaffolding so they can hit a button, copy everything over, and you have your wallet, you have everything going. And so thank you, Headline, for building that. It's really awesome. Lando is another project. Is Matt here? Matt's here. So it's another project. Guy in the back, talked to him about it. What they're building is super exciting. I just said that for every single one of them, and I still will. But they're also super exciting because they are building what I just talked about, smart NFTs. But a lot of people that really care about NFTs, they don't really know how to code. They don't want to learn how to code. They just are creative types, and they want their NFTs to have functionality, but they don't want to put in the effort to make the actual code the thing. So what they're building is what I described. He does a much better job describing this. Is a no-code smart NFT minter with marketplace, and make it so that if a retail company wants to come in and say, I want royalties built into this NFT, or I want it to only can be transferred to other people that hold this NFT, it's a drag and drop, click around and mint, and you're good to go. And then finally, Zone on this page. There's another page. Zone is Zone XCZ. It's a esports betting platform. I think they had around like 4 to 5 million already users, and they're bringing all of those over to the Algorand space, and they are using Reach. Next, oh, sorry, Jay, did you want to talk about anything?
No, you can have your glory.
This is actually rare, by the way. Frequency, they're on the other stage, so I don't think he's here right now watching this as we speak. So I won't give up too much because I don't want to blow up his spot, but it is synchronized, right? Synchronized royalties for music, making it so that it's very easy to buy the rights to music and use in your product, and make sure that the royalties go to the right place. So Keatley, you can talk to Keatley about anything. He's great to talk to, but talking about music, he has tons of experience there. Another Australian friend, X-Fact. I'm gonna give you this one.
You can have this one.
Okay. You can't have the next two.
Fine.
Okay. So X-Fact, Austin, who I've been talking to forever, they're building a decentralized stablecoin that's very similar to Maker. They've been working with Reach now for probably one of the longest as far as the teams go, and they've built an entire very elegant system with multiple moving parts, oracles, everything. And we've been working with them for architecting, meet with Austin probably every other week, and they're building their entire product on Reach as well. Now the exciting one. Who loves the logo? Is it a good logo? Joke's on you. It's because we don't have a logo yet. So they just scribbled something there. But what Game Jam is, so I'm a gamer. I've been a gamer my entire life. I've invested, sadly, thousands of dollars in things that I'll never see again. Buy skins or parts of games or expansions, and then I get bored of that game. Then what do? I start all over again. So Game Jam is our attempt to fixing that entire system. It's over a $20 billion a year system that people put money into it, and then it just goes away when they move on. So Game Jam is a gaming ecosystem that centers around the NFT. I have a beard. I can't do nothing about it. Okay. So the big benefit here is if you invest in the assets with Game Jam in the ecosystem, instead of being able to lose it, you get to own it and get to actually bring that same NFT from game to game to game to game. And how do we do this, Jay?
We do this because the NFTs are smart NFTs where all the different games will be able to communicate with them. And the games have an incentive to do this because they will actually get their funding from a DAO that is associated with the royalties generated from people selling the NFTs from one another and buying them initially. So that DAO will hold a large pool of resources and essentially will act like a game publisher who will locate game companies, bring them onto the platform. They'll launch amazing, great games. And we've brought in an industry veteran of the gaming industry to help lead this initiative for us.
But wait, Jay, why would I want a giant sword of power +2 in my racing game? That doesn't make sense.
Actually, that would be pretty amazing. Imagine you're driving in your racing game and then all comes out the giant sword. The thing that's kind of special about this is that, you know, the concept of the NFT can be unique from game to game. So for example, suppose that you have the Zeus NFT. Well, in one game, you're Lightning Zeus, the driver. You know what I mean? You're extra fast. You're in a cool car with a yellow lightning bolt, etc. But in another game, maybe you know, you are a depressed old guy who used to be a god, but nobody cares about him anymore. And now you're just a bum on the street. And this is, you know, a dystopian JRPG. Or maybe something else.
Or so maybe it's a first-person shooter and it's the Zeus skin for your gun. The key here is that you lower the level of abstraction of the NFT to pretty much just the string. What it actually means is contextual to the game itself. So this gives the game developer full reign to be as creative as they want. All they have to do is somehow relate it to the ownership of that user. And that gives the user the ability to really experience their NFT in multiple different ways. But wait, there's more, Jay. So that's a cool feature, right? But we want DeFi with our NFTs, right? We want to be able to say, not only do I own this huge horde of NFTs, I want to generate revenue on it. So one of the things that we did is created a new economic model that we call liquidity for liquid assets. And how this works is that it'll allow for you, the owner of the NFT, to stake your NFT into a pool. And we borrow some things from fractionalized banking that anybody has now the ability to create a copy of the utility of that NFT and limit the number of that can be copied through a bonding curve so that it's economically limits of the scarcity of that product. And what this does is it fixes one of the major problems with NFTs in gaming, especially when you're building a gaming ecosystem like this, is that if you only have 100,000 of those NFTs in the entire world, does that mean that the most you could have is 100,000 gamers? Not with this this new economic model that we created. That's pretty exciting, right?
It's pretty exciting.
But wait.
Maybe I would get, oh yeah, wait, there's more?
There's more.
Okay, let's listen.
So play to earn. Who here likes play to earn games, the idea of play to earn, right? Thank you, thank you, thank you. So what we did is we actually added a new token to this entire process that we're calling the XP token. The XP token is a token that is given to the game designers to be able to reward the gamers to actually play their game. That XP token then can be used as a fungible token to trade or sell, or they can use it to upgrade their tier 2 copies of the NFTs to tier 1. So it gives the ability for new users coming into the system to have the ability to actually get those scarce NFTs that no longer exist by upgrading and putting in the work to make that happen. There is more, but that's enough for talking about Game Jam. But anything we want to add to that?
No, I'm good.
You want to do humble?
No, it's fine.
Okay. So Humble. So by the way, who's building that? We're building that. So Game Jam Protocol, we're building that. Humble, we're also building. What Humble is fixing the problem of my mom not knowing how to take advantage of DeFi. We use the tag DeFi for everybody, because what we found is that new people coming in the space, even though things like Uniswap are super straightforward, they're still intimidating. So we're going for a very user accessibility DeFi suite that has a help desk. Like, who here wanted to use DeFi but got confused and wanted to ask somebody how to do something? You can't do that until now or soon. So we're going to be
So for example, we're thinking about the retail end of DeFi. Right now, there are many people in the retail market who are interested in being part of the cryptocurrency phenomenon, but they're using products like Coinbase and crypto.com and whatnot, and they're really using those in a day trading capacity. And we know that day trading is not the most successful investment portfolio. It's far wiser to use something like an index fund or something like that. Well, liquidity pools essentially are something like an index fund. They're not literally an index fund, but they have a similar property, but they're a relatively safe way to generate yield on your assets. And the thing is that right now, those products are only for elite DeFi consumers that are not this kind of retail market. So we're trying to build something that is a retail-oriented, with a help desk version of DeFi. That's what the Humble brand is all about.
And we're starting out with a DEX, a decentralized exchange, AMM, that will work similar to your just traditional pairing AMM. But we're adding the functionality of an order book to it. So you'll have limit orders on top of this DEX, and you'll also have farming. So being able to farm the liquidity, and all of this with a very clear user interface, because we want to make sure that my mom can use it. And the DEX is just the start. The DAO is going to this is going to be owned by a DAO that's going to decide the next functions that it will have, and it will be decided by all of you. But that's Humble, and kind of where we are with that. If you'd like to start using it, we're going to user test it tomorrow at what time? Shanti, hey. 9:30 a.m. So if you actually want to see it in action and actually start swapping around and using it, it's on testnet. It's just closed testnet, but we'd love to get your thoughts. There's probably an EV NFT in it for you. So who doesn't love NFTs? But so come check out Humble, see where we are. It's pretty powerful.
So I'm done with these lists. Let's do something different. Oh, whoa, this is great.
Wow. All right, so we're gonna this is the part of where I was talking about earlier is let's just get weird with it and start just answering questions on the fly. What is this one? What is blockchain and
look right there, Chris.
Oh,
you can read better. I got to teach him to read.
Yeah. Thank you, Jay. I don't know where I'd be without you.
I know. So what is blockchain and why should I care? Now, obviously, you guys are here because you care about blockchain, you care about Algorand, but we wanted to pose this question to start off with to give you our unique Ricci spin on it, which is that many people, when they think about what's cool about blockchain, they'll think about some like low-level technical detail, like aren't consensus algorithms just so neat? Isn't cryptography really cool? But those things are not relevant for consumers. That would be like me trying to sell you a car based on how shiny the spark plugs are. Now, there are some aficionados who really love the shape of the spark plugs and that kind of thing. But we think that the value of blockchain has to be something other than the reason that it's the interesting technology of it. And it also can't be the future promise of it. The reason that blockchain is valuable is not because it will be cool in the future. The reason it will be cool in the future is because it is inherently valuable. And the thing is that we recognize that value right now. Chris, why don't you tell them what that value is? I'm giving him a chance. I mean, I would sell you, but let's let him.
The main thing here, this is the thing I actually pitched to everybody to go read this research paper, which you read my mind. Is that what's going on? So there's a research paper out there called Some Simple Economics of Blockchain. It's a great research paper to truly understand what the value of blockchain is. So make sure, I want to see a lot of writing down to read a research paper. But let me summarize it for you. What it does is it lowers the cost of verification. Jay, you want to go through?
Yeah, so by lowering the cost of verification, what we mean is that two people, the essentials of any market are two people coming together and making a mutually beneficial transaction. Now, the only way that can happen, though, is if they trust one another. Imagine that I want to sell you my car and you're like, okay, let's go meet in this alley. And I don't want to do that because I don't want you to like stab me or something like that. So for very high valued things, we are super stressed out about buying them because we're really nervous about the other person screwing us. That's why there's so many hoops that you have to jump through when you buy a car, and it's even worse when you buy a house. And it's also similar when you even buying something relatively small like a phone or something like that. You don't meet in a dark alley to sell a phone because you're going to get stabbed or something like that. So the thing is that in those interactions, we generally trust one another. When I, was at the airport, someone said, "Hey, would you mind?" They didn't ask me to watch their bag. They said, "Would you mind holding my spot here? Because I need to go talk to them and see if I'm allowed to get a wheelchair." And I'm like, "Of course I'm going to watch your spot. This is just some random person, but they got a boot on. I'm going to help them." Okay, so we generally trust one another, but we don't trust one another, with our house. Okay, and so there's a lot of infrastructure in our economy right now that is all about making sure people who don't trust each other can trust by basically trusting a middleman who is going to hold some resources in escrow. Those middlemen, we see them pervasively throughout the economy, providing this trusting verification function for two parties that wouldn't otherwise work together. The thing that is special about blockchain is it allows that function to be done without a middleman. This is important because that will lower the price of these transactions. Lowering the price of these transactions will mean more of them will clear. When Silvio talked this morning about how something like a 50-cent fee is significant when you only make $100 a year, well, a 50-cent fee is peanuts compared to what the actual fees are for something like getting a title for your house in some of these countries around the world that don't have as advanced and publicly beneficial institutions that we have. So this is the long run value of blockchain. And there are ways that it will be relevant for people like us in America, but it'll be far more valuable in other places where their middlemen are charging much higher rents and their middlemen are simply not as trustworthy as ours are.
Jay, I'm going to jump in here real quick. So there's two ways you can look at this. There's looking at current industries that the cost of verification is really high. And blockchain will actually make that much cheaper to use, so we can save money. But the more exciting thing that I like to look at is what industries don't exist today because it's great music, because the cost of verification is so high. Things like tradable DRM music. Right now, to actually make sure that you only listen to the music that you want, but you have the ability to resell it and provide royalties back to the original creator, is not an existing industry that would work today without blockchain. So yes, it lowers the cost of verification, but it also creates entire new industries. And that's why we're doing this. This is why I wake up every day, is because I want to create entire new industries that never existed before. Because
those industries will only be created by the people who are not currently working on these things now. The kinds of expertise that people have right now working in the blockchain world is focused on a relatively small number of problems. But we want to bring in millions of developers. They can unleash their creativity to identify these kinds of problems that no one has ever thought of before. And that is the way that Web 3.0 will be larger than Web 3.0. Not simply by doing the Web 2.0 game slightly better, but by doing a completely different game that we don't currently understand what that is.
Yeah.
Now, I think that a natural question that people have about blockchain, and people ask us this all the time, so we're blockchain agnostic, and so that means that we support a number of different chains. So people think though, yeah, you're blockchain agnostic, but obviously Algorand is the best. Isn't it going to be the only chain? And I really enjoyed that this morning, one of the things that Paul mentioned is that we believe that there's going to be a case for there to be a large number of chains in the future because they all have different things that they're going to be used for. Think about a commodity product like rice, for instance. I challenge you to think of something more of a commodity than rice. And that there's sushi rice and jasmine rice, and there's brown rice. There's many, many different kinds of rice. So even for a product like that, there's all sorts of different tastes that people have, different things that they want out of that product. Cars are the same way. All of the products that we consume, we rarely want a unified thing. Now, you could imagine that there could be a blockchain that is simultaneously a Ferrari and a minivan, and guess what? It's also an RV. This would be a monstrosity. Now, right now, everybody is trying to build the Ferrari of blockchain. And when I look at many other chains that we work with and that we are trying to work with and that we're thinking about working with, I feel like a lot of people are stretching themselves too far in many, many different directions. And one of the things that I love about Algorand is that their focus on their core mission, which right now is being the fastest and the most scalable with the highest transaction throughput and a true decentralization model. So that core value of Algorand is extremely apparent. And I think that that kind of thing will be what distinguishes blockchains that last from blockchains that won't last. And there will be many of them in the future.
But Jay, what makes Algorand different from the other protocols?
Yeah, so I did mention just now about some of the things that I think defines Algorand. But for me personally, as a consumer of like the technical thing of Algorand, you know what I mean? I'm constantly working with all the technical details. And we talk so often with many of the leaders and engineers at Algorand. I think that the thing that really separates them is that there's a degree of professionalism in the execution and the planning of their product that is just totally a different level than all the other chains that we've ever, so that not that we've worked with, because they're great, but that we interact with and that we know about. I think that the organization of Algorand is the thing that makes it extremely special. And I think to pick one example of that, this morning, again, one of the things that Paul mentioned is he talked about the large number of protocol upgrades, and including major protocol upgrades that have happened in this year alone.
Right.
What is another chain that has had that many protocol upgrades that have not led to downtime, that have not led to extreme failures, or that have even attempted to do them at all? You can only do that if you are running shipshape with a professional organization, and I think that that is something that I really love about Algorand.
Let me jump in too. So the thing that I always tell everybody about why Algorand is special to me is because I believe that Algorand is the most real blockchain. So many other chains out there talk about what it will be, how it's going to change the world with these millions of transactions, and don't worry about the downtime now, or don't worry about whatever. It's going to be great in the future. Algorand talks about what it is today, and that is actually super special. And like it should make you all feel really good that when you hear about these things, Paul talks about what we did in the past. And like Jay said, they've done so much. And so today, right now, you can build pretty much anything in the entire DeFi space on Algorand today and have it scale better than many of the existing chains that are out there today. So I say that the thing that I like most about Algorand is that it's the most real.
This question is, what projects or areas of research deserve more funding and attention, presumably by the Algorand world? I think that you want to start.
I'll start. I don't like this question.
Yeah.
Because the answer is everything. And because if we don't know, we're all early. We all like to pretend that we're geniuses, some more than others. But
they're more actually geniuses.
Yeah, something like that.
Not pretend more.
Something. But the truth is that we don't know. We are just figuring out ourselves. And even though we pretend to talk like we know what it is, we don't. And we need more people into the space, new, fresh minds, building new things. And that's why I don't like when people ask this question, because it's impossible to know.
And the reason that I don't like this question, you don't like the first half of the question, I don't like the second half of the question, which is that I don't like the idea that you need a whole lot of funding to do something interesting in this space. That tells me that we have not built the right tools, because those tools are so hard to use that you need to set up a large capitalization before you can even get started. This is another part of why Reach exists. Our goal is to lower the cost of development so far that you can be just a normal entrepreneur with just an interesting idea. You don't need to be a PhD in cryptography. You don't need to have any technical expertise. You can get started right away building a prototype. Maybe after you build the prototype and get a little bit of experience, then you'll be able to bring in that capital and you can make sure that things are fully organized correctly. But we see that happening right now in our community with Reach, that there are people who are an MBA student in India who thought of an amazing idea. He's working on it on his own. He's building his, I walked him through. I was like, you really know Excel well, so make a prototype of your program in Excel, and then we'll help you convert that Excel program into Reach. He's in that process right now, and he pitched his idea, and he's got funding now, and he's going to start hiring a team of people to do it. That is the sort of thing that can happen on reach, and that you can't do if the only thing that you have available is a programming language like Solidity, where you have to be an amazing expert dealing with, oh no, stack too deep, can't get 16 variables in. It's just not feasible to have the creativity that the blockchain space needs if that's your only option.
Or shout out actually to someone that you guys might know, NFT Jam. I don't know if you've heard about it. It's a NFT auction platform. It's being built by one person part-time, like after he does his normal job. And it's extremely elegant. It has got snipe protection in it. It's got reserves. He built in discoverability, which I didn't even think that, like, it was amazing. He did it all on chain, and he just did it by himself because of the infrastructure. So this is, I agree with you.
He did that in Reach.
Yeah, he did it all in Reach. Of course.
The future of NFTs.
Goodness.
So we did talk before about the future of NFTs being smart NFTs. Is that the way? Is that when you see this? Is that what you think about, or do you think about NFTs in a different context than their smartness?
So this is Brandon triggering me. So thank you, Brandon. So you probably all see me talk about NFTs a lot, and so yes, Jay, it's smart NFTs are the future. But what does smart mean? Like, that's such a open, a word that it can mean anything. It's just self-sovereign ownership with rules. But that it's such like you can do anything with that. You can put rules around what it means to own it, what it means to transfer it, what it means to do extra functionality while you own it. And this is actually the problem that NFTs, that people think that, like this part here, the T, they think it's a token. It's a thing that you can trade back and forth. But really what a NFT and the future NFT is, they're self-contained applications that don't require any overhead to work. And so that is the future of NFTs. Like, you want to
the way that I would think about this is that the concept of smart contract is a very, very large concept, and we recognize that there are many, many different things inside of that. And our claim is that NFT is as large of a concept as smart contract itself. That there are many things that are NFTs because there are many places in the world where you own something. You want to have complete control over you owning it without somebody else telling you what you can do with it, when you can trade it, how and why. And that thing that you own, the NFT part only describes the fact that you are self-sovereign ownership of it. It doesn't describe the thing itself. I own my car, and I also own my phone, and I also own this pair of shoes. They all do very different things. And when they have a digital application to them, that will be reflected in the smart contract part of the NFT.
Yeah.
And I think that right now, we sell ourselves short when we think that NFTs are only beautiful art that's hanging on a wall or beautiful art that's in my collectible system. Those are NFTs, and that is a major way that we're discovering the value of NFTs. But that is not what NFTs are. It's the first NFT we discovered.
Correct. So yeah, we do a podcast. Jay and I actually rant for an entire hour about NFTs. So if you want to check that out, it's Better on Blockchain. We're on YouTube or Spotify, or don't choke. You're worth a lot of money. But yeah, let's move on, because I think we're running out of time. All right, we're good. You guys want to do Q&A after, or do you just want us to talk the whole time? Any thoughts?
Yeah.
You have time for both? Okay, never mind then.
All right, so this one says the future of DAOs. So a DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization.
By the way, NFTs is my trigger word. DAOs is actually Jay's trigger word. So
but what is an organization? I'm baiting Chris.
Oh God, here we go again. What is an organization, Jay?
So people think of DAOs as being, again, like NFTs, just one specific idea. This specific idea that they imagine a DAO must be is that it's a pool of resources that we democratically decide, perhaps based on the capital of ownership of the treasury, to take money from that, give it to somebody that we think will be beneficial for the treasury itself. That is the first DAO that we discovered, but it is not what a DAO is. What a DAO is an organization which holds resources and can take actions. Those resources are typically the objects of the action. So for instance, the one that is a treasury, the actions that you take are funding, but there could be other actions that you could take. A good example of this is that a decentralized oracle is really a DAO where the actions are not giving people money. The actions are saying that the weather is 74 degrees right now, or saying that there was this much rainfall in some particular place in the world. That is just an action that an organization is taking. And the idea of the organization taking actions is the DAO concept. The other part of the DAO concept is the voting mechanism, or rather the decision-making rule to determine which actions you should actually take. And the thing about that is that right now, people build DAOs on sort of a naive social choice theory. But there's a large field of research in economics about how to design constitutions for decision-making processes that produce certain kinds of outcomes. And so the idea is that what a DAO is it's some organization that has a long-run mission, and you want to try to figure out a constitution that binds that organization to only make decisions with a certain set of rules so that you can hope that those actions in the long run will produce the results that you hope that they will. When we look at constitutions in the real world of governments or of foundations or of charities and other, or even corporate charters, these are all examples of DAOs. But DAOs are also something as simple as your neighborhood watch society or your local homeowners association. And I think that we, again, sell ourselves short when we think that the only thing that a DAO is a way for my new token to manage, community projects for this token. We should instead think about a DAO as, the next time in 100 years, when you move into a new house, you're going to join the DAO of that neighborhood, and you're not going to pay fees into that DAO. They're actually going to pay you because the treasury of that DAO has been making yield for the last 50 years since they adopted, hosting their DAO on Algorand, and they've been, generating yield from all of the dues of that thing over a period of time.
What's the D mean? Is there ever such thing as a decentralized DAO? Like, is that right?
Yeah. So, we just had you just had the lecture on the O.
Yeah. Let's skip the A.
We'll skip the A. The
right.
lecture on the D is that organizations are inherently centralized because there's one pool of resources. So just think about the traditional DAO, where we have this large pool of funds of some new token that we're going to share. Why exactly are they pooling them together? Why not just make it so that everybody in this room, gets one, and if you want to fund something, then you just fund it, and if you don't want to fund it, then you don't. The reason for the DAO is to make it so that 51% can take the stuff from 49%. This is, again, the purpose of democracy, to be cruel to minorities, which is why countries like the United States are not democracies, they're republics, because we try to restrain the negative part of democracy with the positive part of aristocracy, and we try to restrain the negative part of aristocracy with the positive part of democracy. So
this is like what I do for fun. I'm like, I'm going to ask Jay a question and then let him go for a while.
It's funny that you say that, because so my wife is pregnant right now and she has a really hard time sleeping, and she'll wake up at night and she'll literally say, tell me about something, Jay. And I just talk to her and she falls asleep.
And then, 5 hours later, it's time to wake up.
Yeah. So anyways, so the thing though is that DAOs are inherently centralized because they're one pool of resources that has some sort of central decision-making process on controlling that resources. The reason that we call them decentralized is that their autonomy comes from their deployment on a decentralized network like Algorand. They themselves are actually a point of centralization. So I think that another sort of design pattern of dApps that we will learn as we get more advanced in the blockchain world is that we will actually see we will see non-DAO versions of things that are DAO things like right now, because they will be more decentralized, more in the hands of the individual owners of the resources, and that'll be a good thing too.
All right, that's enough about DAOs. We also did an episode about DAOs, so if you want to see about that, an hour of it. The Metaverse. Wow, you're like another trigger word. So everybody, actually, I'm gonna let you go first.
Oh, all right.
I'm gonna come at him hard.
When I think of the Metaverse, I think of the movie Ready Player One, or the book Ready Player One, and then there's a good movie too. The movie's okay. And in that, to me, it's meant, so when you watch the movie, it's simultaneously dystopian and fantastical, where you're supposed to be amazed at this amazing technological creation, but you're supposed to be depressed about the outside world. And I am definitely the kind of person that in that world, I would be, on my farm shaking my cane at all those kids in, in the VR experience. I'm not interested in that metaverse in any way.
Jay.
I'm like the oldest, old-fashioned, folksy folk person you can imagine. I might not look it, but I am never putting on those VR goggles. I'm not interested. Metaverse, poo.
So number one, I can actually agree. He is a grumpy old man. That is something very true. But what he doesn't have right is the actual definition of metaverse. This is actually a common issue by so many people. When they hear metaverse, thanks Zuck, they think a virtual world where I own things. Raise a hand. Who thinks that is what their thought of metaverse is, right?
Well, you've told them that they're wrong, so they're ashamed to out themselves.
I'm purposely know who I don't want to talk to. But the truth is, that is not the metaverse. The metaverse is simpler and more abstract than that. The metaverse actually has to do with NFTs, the future of NFTs. It's self-sovereign ownership, but where the context of what that ownership means depends on the context of the world you're interfacing it in. So yes, it is part of the metaverse, and you might not want to be part of the virtual world metaverse, but the metaverse is actually more like a multiverse. It's multi dimensions of the entire universe, but it's a single synced ownership in between them all. Let me give you an example of what the real metaverse is.
Well, I want to give you an example actually, because I think that what we talked about Game Jam earlier, that is what you're talking about, but scaled down specifically through the domain of games.
That's exactly correct. But let me get away. I got to wrap it up. Fine. All right. What are we talking about now? Oh, questions. Ta-da! Question time. Anybody have any questions? And by the way, well, thank you. So the community support is very great. So what we have is we have a Discord community that is full of active developers that are actively helping everybody have their questions, and also Jay answering questions as well. So like those 3,500 developers, I'd say around, what we had 2,200, 2,300 people in the Discord community paying attention and answering questions. So if you're ready to build, they're ready to help you, or we're ready to help you as well.
Yeah, and there's like a direct channel that we set up with bigger projects that are at a further stage where we'll give them like a shared Slack channel and that kind of thing. And then the other thing that we do is, especially people early on, we do office hours every Friday where people can sign up to just have 15, 30 minutes, etc., with us to help them work on their architecture for their plant, for their whatever their project is. And a lot of those turn into weekly calls, and I definitely spend way too much time talking to all these people, but it's just too exciting to hear about them. So earlier when we were going through all those projects, I don't really think about them as like, what's the project? I think about them as what's the person. Like Austin is super nice. I love the way that I can see all his team working behind him when we talk. It's just like, I think of them as being, this family of Reach developers that we're all part of. And that's what I really love about Reach.
So wait, we gotta, and where's Michael at? And always just keep in mind that the future of blockchain is in Reach.